Albert Einstein had always been a curious boy. Even as a child, he loved asking questions about the world around him. Why did the stars shine? How did a compass needle always point north? Why did time seem to move differently when he was busy thinking about numbers and ideas? These questions often kept him awake at night, and sometimes they made him forget the ordinary things other children remembered, like the time to get to school. It was a chilly morning in Ulm, Germany, in the year 1896. The sky was gray, and the air smelled faintly of wet leaves. Albert's mother had reminded him 3 times to get ready for school, but Albert had been lost in a notebook filled with drawings of gears, spinning wheels, and equations that no one else seemed to understand. He looked up, startled when he suddenly realized he had only 10 minutes to get to the classroom. Albert grabbed his coat, shoved his notebooks into his bag, and ran out the door. He could see the school building in the distance, but the street was crowded. People were walking slowly, carts were passing by, and he had to dodge puddles and piles of leaves. Every second felt longer than the last. Albert's mind raced faster than his feet. He was thinking about the problem of light moving through glass, about how a shadow changed when the sun moved across the sky, and about how strange it was that time felt different when he studied something exciting. As he rounded a corner, Albert saw the school bell ringing. His heart sank. The bell meant the class had already started, and the stern teacher, Herr Müller, was known for his strict rules about punctuality. Albert's chest felt tight. He hated being late, not because he feared punishment, but because he hated missing the beginning of anything interesting. He sprinted the last few meters and reached the classroom door. It was locked. Albert could hear the teacher's voice inside, speaking about a lesson in mathematics. He knocked nervously, hoping to be allowed in. "Herr Müller," he said softly, "may I come in?" There was a pause. Then the door opened a crack, and the teacher's sharp eyes peered at him. "Einstein, you are late again. You know the rules. Enter immediately, but do not disturb the class." Albert nodded quickly and slipped inside. The classroom was filled with the sound of chalk scratching against the blackboard. The students were already deep in their work, solving problems that seemed simple to them, but felt like tiny mountains to Albert. He found a seat at the back and tried to catch up. But something strange happened. As he looked at the numbers and formulas, Albert realized he was thinking differently from everyone else. While the other students were adding and subtracting, he was imagining what would happen if time moved faster or slower. He wondered if the way objects fell could change depending on how fast he was moving. His curiosity pulled him away from the lesson on the blackboard and into a world of his own ideas. During the break, Albert went to the playground. His mind was buzzing. Why do we always have to follow the same rules and times, he asked himself. If light can travel so fast, why can't we think about time in a different way? He wandered under the trees, thinking until Herr Müller came outside. The teacher watched him for a moment, then approached. "Albert, why are you not with your classmates?" "We are learning something important." Albert looked at the teacher and said honestly, "Herr Müller, I am trying to understand it, But I also want to understand everything else at the same time. I think about how numbers and the world connect. It's like the lesson is just one piece of a bigger puzzle. The teacher frowned. A bigger puzzle is fine, Albert, but first you must learn the rules of this class. You cannot solve the universe if you cannot solve your homework. Albert nodded slowly. He understood, in his own way, that rules had their place, but he also knew he could not stop thinking about the questions that kept him awake at night. That day, he returned to the classroom, worked through the problems, and even helped a classmate understand a difficult equation. Yet, in the back of his mind, he kept imagining worlds where time flowed differently, where light bent in strange ways, and where ideas were free to roam beyond the classroom walls. As the days passed, Albert's lateness became a problem for Herr Müller. The teacher tried everything: warnings, lectures, even assigning extra homework. But Albert never stopped thinking in his own way. Sometimes he was late because he had been reading about electricity and magnetism. Sometimes because he had been trying to draw the path of the planets. And sometimes because he had simply lost track of time, caught in his imagination. One day, the teacher decided to speak to Albert's parents. They came to the school, worried that their son might be in trouble. Herr Müller explained how Albert often arrived late, how he distracted other students, and how he seemed more interested in his own ideas than in following instructions. Albert's parents listened quietly. Then his father spoke. Herr Müller, we understand your concern, but Albert is not careless. He thinks deeply about the world. We believe this curiosity is a gift, even if it does make him late sometimes. Herr Müller shook his head. A gift is fine, but school has rules. He must learn to follow them. Albert's mother added softly, "We will help him, but please remember that his questions are important too. They may lead him to discover things that no one else can." The teacher sighed. "Very well. I will try to be patient, but he must also try to be on time." Albert promised, in his own quiet way. And he tried. Some days he made it to school early, other days he did not. But no matter what, he never stopped thinking. One morning, Albert was especially careful. He woke early, ate breakfast quickly, and put on his coat. He made sure his notebooks were ready and ran down the street toward school. But suddenly, he stopped. A small crowd had gathered around an accident. A cart had tipped over, and apples were scattered across the street. Albert could have run past them, but instead he helped the man pick up the apples. The man thanked him warmly, and Albert smiled. He had lost time, yes, but he felt good about what he had done. By the time he arrived at school, the bell had rung. But Herr Müller, seeing him run up the steps, did not scold him. Perhaps he had noticed the good in Albert, even if he did not always understand it. Albert entered the classroom, took his seat, and listened carefully. But even as he followed the lesson, his mind wandered to the questions that had started his morning: light, time, and the invisible forces that shaped the world. At the end of the day, Albert walked home slowly. He passed the streets now quiet and peaceful, the air smelling faintly of the river and wet earth. He realized something important. Being late to class had been stressful, yes, but it had also reminded him that rules and curiosity often clashed in the life of someone who wanted to discover the unknown. That evening, his father asked, "Did you enjoy your lessons today?" Albert smiled faintly. "Yes, but I also learned something else. I learned that the mind can be late to one thing but arrive early to another. Some lessons are measured by time. Others are measured by curiosity." From that day on, Albert tried harder to be on time, but he never let the bell stop him from following his questions. He carried both the rules and his imagination with him, understanding that one guided him through the world, while the other carried him beyond it. Years later, when he became famous for discovering the theory of relativity, people often asked him how he had thought of such strange ideas about time and space. Albert would smile and remember that gray morning in Ulm, the bell, and the locked classroom door. He knew that being late had taught him a lesson that no teacher could write on the blackboard. Because sometimes the most important discoveries do not begin on time. They begin in the mind of someone who dares to be a little late.